Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Scott's Quick Cash Class. Every day bringing you 5 to 7 minute episodes talking about different financial topics to help you, to help me. Remember, I'm never going to ask you to buy or sell anything because those kind of people are not trying to help you, right? So today we are going to talk about finances and the family and talking about them at the dinner table, right? So I'm not super old, but I'm old enough. I'm part of Gen X, 45, and so talking about finances when I was younger, that was there was a few things you didn't talk about at the dinner table. Religion generally was one. Politics was another, and then money was another one that you didn't really bring up at the dinner table because it was supposed to be a peaceful time. Unfortunately, those type of things, not talking about, and I'm not going to get into politics or religion here, but, not talking about money doesn't make it easier to manage, right? Think about, if you were going to take a history test, right? And no one ever talked to you about history. There was no guidance on it, there was no firsthand experiences talking about history. And then you get to the 12th grade and they go, here's a test on everything on the world history or American history from when it started in 17 whatever, right? Or I guess technically it'd be earlier than that. But my point is, how well do you think you would do with that, right? Maybe you'll get some things right, some things you never even heard of, so you're not even gonna take a shot at those. Well, that's kind of how the finance world is, right? They don't talk about anything in high school, or very little, or the information they do give to you is really old and not relevant anymore. And then they shoo you off into the real world, i.e. college, or a lot of you guys go to work, but you get out and you think, okay, like I got all this freedom now, I'm 18, and you start getting credit card offers, or maybe you go and buy, your parents help you get a car, and then you start a lot of student debt, and no one ever tells you how to get out of that, right? Or how to properly handle your finances before. I feel like my parents gave me a pretty good education on it. Their general theme was, one, don't borrow money. Like, we didn't have credit cards growing up, and the only thing we borrowed money for was a car or a house. Other than that, if we didn't have it, if we didn't have money, we just didn't get it, right? So, my point is, they didn't really talk about investing. They didn't talk about how to make your money grow. They didn't really talk about, any of the financial traps that are out there for young people. And there's even more now than there was when I was growing up. We didn't have social media when I was growing up. And we had to actually wait for a store to open to go buy something, where now you can be online 24/7 and buy whatever you want. And so there's definitely a lot more temptation about that. So here's a few statistics, and I'm a statistic guy. I don't know if you guys are, but I like statistics because it gets me thinking. So 42% of Gen Z openly discuss money at the dinner table, compared to only 24% of Gen X, which is me. That's huge, right? So almost half of you guys are talking about it. And that's, that's one of the first things. You have to identify the problem or identify the issue before you can figure out a solution. So talking about it's good. 2, 37% of millennials now bring up budgeting or debt at family gatherings. That's double the rate it was 10 years ago. So almost a third, or a little over a third of you guys are talking about this with other family. So that's huge. Here's one for you. 62% of families who discuss money openly report lower financial stress in children. Right? And so, I'm a parent. I was fortunate to have a boy and a girl. And we talk to them about money, because, if they're wondering, hey, how are we going to pay this bill? How are we going to pay this bill? Or, hey, how are we going to get maybe new shoes? Or how are we going to put food on the table? Like, those are things that stress kids out. And if you have open and honest conversations about it, that is going to be a lot more manageable for them, right? And they'll understand, because, like adults, kids a lot of times will go to the worst case scenario. So that's that's something you definitely want to make sure you address with them. Now, obviously, they got to be of age for certain things, but being honest and upfront with them about that is definitely a good thing. And then number 4, nearly 50% of young adults say social media prompt them to ask their parents about investing, right? So they were getting information from an outside source to then bring it up to somebody they trusted, right? And that's what I'm talking about. You definitely want to talk to people you trust so you can be in a safe space, but you need to talk about it. And then the last one is 35% of Gen Z say they learn more about money from TikTok than from school curricula. I could go on and on about how all schools, public and private, don't prepare people for the real world, right? Like finances, no matter how much you make, is something you're gonna have to deal with your entire life. And the sooner you get a PhD in finance, the better you're gonna be. So many people out there don't even get their bachelor's degree. They don't even get a GED, right? They barely have an elementary education on finance, and they live in a world of fear that they don't want to do this, don't want to do that, because they don't want to lose their money. What they're not understanding is they're already losing their money by not doing X, Y, and Z and investing for their future. So I think that's really good that the younger generations are much more likely to have conversations about that. So let's talk about a few actionable items you can do if you're not really sure. You're like, hey, I want to have these conversations, I'm not really sure how to do that. Action item number 1. Initiate a weekly or monthly family money check-in over dinner or coffee. Dinner might be a little tough, but we have financial meetings at our house. Me and my wife do once a week, and that just helps us stay on the same page. That's another way of, if you have coffee or maybe just set some time, on one of the quieter evenings, but get in a pattern of having a conversation. 2, use real life scenarios like buying groceries, or putting gas in a car, or things like that, as teachable lessons for kids, right? And I equate, because kids sometimes have a hard time understanding that, the value of a dollar. I equate it in time. They tend to understand that a little bit better. So, when we go out to eat, I say, hey, Daddy had to work 4 hours for us to go out and do this, or Daddy had to work 8 hours for us to go and do this. And so that helps them understand a little bit like, hey, he had to go to work for 3 days so we could do this one activity. It hits home a lot more. And then 3rd, create a safe, no shame zone where you can talk about financial mistakes and how you could avoid them, right? And not everyone's necessarily comfortable talking to everybody in their family, but I encourage you to pick somebody that you trust who's going to be non-judgmental and bounce ideas off them, even if that person doesn't have the financial aptitude that you're necessarily looking for. You talking about it, it's almost like money therapy, right? If you talk about the problem with somebody else, 1, it takes weight off your chest, and 2, it allows you to process it better. And so I really encourage you, now, if you can get a mentor, somebody hands-on that is very successful with money, and you have direct access to them, then by all means, that's a person you need to talk to. So hopefully those statistics kind of surprised you a little bit, and hopefully the actionable items are something that you can utilize. I know personally when we do these, it makes everyone feel a little bit more at ease about where we're at and where we're going, and we have honest conversations. Yes, we can afford that. No, we can't afford that. So I'm going to leave you with the question of the day, tip of the day, question of the day. When was the last time you had a real money conversation with family, and how did it go? Right? And I know it's a real touchy subject, but I really encourage you to do that. And then tip of the day, this week, ask one family member what financial lesson they wish they had learned earlier. And I'm sure you'll be surprised at those answers. I wish I would have learned about compounding interest much sooner than what I did learn. I learned it in my early 20s. I wish I would have learned that at 12 years old, because the power of compounding interest is huge. That's all I got for you. Thank you guys for watching. Really appreciate it. Leave the comments below. If you have questions, absolutely leave them below. I'll try to answer them the best I can. Really appreciate you guys. Till next time.